folks of the internet world. How are you doing? So, not only do you get two intros with this show, it's kind of two shows this week, Ronnie, because this is Still Alive, but I think it should also be called Still Awake, because we're
well, just about, because it's a bit later. It's coming to my bedtime nearly now.
2 hours later, yeah. So
anyway, I've just been brought a cup of tea, so that should keep me awake.
Oh right, I got one too, but I didn't have it brought to me.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Louise has messed up my lighting.
Oh right.
Hi, Roger.
Hey,
How you doing?
we were doing fine until you arrived, Louise.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry.
She's in disruption mode at the moment.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're out on bail, Louise.
Yeah. I know.
Yes, she's on bail.
I'm on bail at the min. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we might talk about that a little later on.
Yeah.
Hi, darling.
Yeah.
I'll let you get on.
Okay.
Thanks.
Take care, Rod.
That's it. Our show was disrupted.
Sorry.
So we had Michael in the house really early on. Goodness, we've made it through another week without dying. Yeah.
Yes.
Is very true. There's Colleen. Hi, Michael and everyone. Vegan Potterhead. Amber V. Justin Lavance and Linda Carroll. I think that's everyone so far. Right. Okay. So this is part 3 of our little look at the Animal Justice Academy's 50 tips. And a few people said, and we said it ourselves, didn't we, Ronnie, that there was a few what we thought were fairly odd ones last week. And so, but I was thinking about that. I was having a walk earlier on, and I was thinking, well, the idea of this entire series is the fact that we want to try and suggest to people that there are lots and lots of different forms of activism, and you don't need to get involved with, the kind of main forms like cubes and squares and diamonds and all that kind of stuff, and saves to still be an activist. And so, even though some things might feel a bit weird to us, Ronnie, some people might go, "Oh well, that sounds just up my street." So you never know in that sense, there.
I mean, possibly so. There might be someone who wants to stick a note saying "I love you" on a butcher shop, but as we had last week.
Yeah. Well, if somebody tries it and hangs around, let us know what the reaction of the butchers were.
Well, we'll see if the butcher loves them back then, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put your name and address on it. So, right. So this is where we left it last time. So this is the Mark Bolan, Jimi Hendrix, and Joni Mitchell one. Yeah, we need all types of activism. That is very true.
Yeah, it's very true.
Not absolutely every different type, but certainly that I would agree.
No, I think yeah.
No. You see, you've got it wrong. If you go back to the last week's show, you've got to love them. You've got to...
Not only have you got to love them, you've got to get a post-it note and write "I love you" on it. I love you, but don't hurt animals or something, haven't you? And
I still don't know if it was a post-it note, because that's just going to blow off in 2 minutes. So anyway,
yeah. Well, you got to stick something on the window saying that. But
yeah,
anyway.
we were into non-vegan blue tack or whatever.
Yes. So, yeah.
Actually, the first one for this week, Ronnie, we're probably going to know, me and you. This is absolutely nothing about this. Do you know anything about investing?
Well, no. I mean, the thing is, I don't invest in anything directly, and anything like that, I just can't stand it. Anything to do with any of that finance and shit, it makes my eyes glaze over. But of course, banking, all the banks we put our money into invest in stuff, and some of them, invest in, really unethical things, including animal farming. So it's well worth trying to people try to put their money in
now, isn't it? I mean, there used to be, and I don't know if they still exist, to be honest, these kind of ethical consumer guides.
Yes.
Do they still exist?
that still exists. If someone does an internet search for ethical banking, then I think there's probably a number of sites that list which banks are the most ethical and the ways in which banks are ethical and unethical, so to speak. It gives you the opportunity to switch your money to a more ethical bank. Because the way that people said, the way that most people invest money is probably indirectly, not
kind of portfolios and stuff. Which
but it's mostly through they bank with banks, and those banks then invest the money, and so it's important if you can to switch to a more ethical bank.
Well, I've always been told that it used to be easy to boycott things back in the day, but now it's a lot more difficult because of this portfolio thing. So in other words, they've all got shares in each other and stuff. And so even though the kind of it's a little bit like buying a plant-based or a plant product, what is the company behind them? So it's a bit of a minefield, isn't it?
I think we can only do our best, and one way in which we can do our best is, if possible, try to bank with Triad. I think it's pronounced Triodos. That one. Triodos is certainly, yes. I think it probably is the most ethical. I think that might only be a UK bank. I'm not sure. But yes, I think they're right up there amongst the most ethical. Anyway, Triodos or Triodos, however it's pronounced.
How's Lloyd's? Oh, Lloyd's is terrible.
Lloyd's
isn't
Lloyd's isn't that great. Tomorrow. They're not that great. Funny enough, here in the UK, one that is one of the better ones is actually Nationwide. In a Nationwide, I don't know. It was a building side. I don't know if it's still called a building side.
People used to say co-op, right? Is that still the case?
Co-op, yeah, co-op's kind of reasonably okay. It's kind of they're certainly not the worst.
No, but are they a co-op still?
Are they a co-op? I think in some senses they are. I mean, they are pretty commercial, but and the co-op bank isn't the most ethical. You'd think it kind of would be, but it isn't. There's others more ethical than the co-op. But the best way to do it, because these these things can change over time. The best way that people can do it is to go on the net, search for ethical banking, and then, because it'll be different in different banks in different countries, aren't there? And so it'll give you an idea of
it's bound to change from country to country, and then also over time as well.
Yes, yeah.
So hi, we've got Vegan Postmortem and Maz the Gob.
Maz, hi Maz.
Yeah, welcome along. So so I suppose this was an interesting one. If you're in that kind of field of awareness, you could always ask James Aspie.
I mean, I hate the whole thing of investing and stock exchange. I think all of it, I'd like to see all of it done away with, and us to have a much more simple way of living, because it's kind of dealing with thin air in a way, isn't it? All of that, and no, I hate it. I hate all of that. I'd like a world without the stock exchange and without any of that.
Yeah, it says here you might inadvertently own animal farms. Yeah,
well, you may be investing in companies, or your bank may be investing in companies that own animal farms, or even own animal research laboratories and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I think the real problem is keeping up with it as it changes now, I'd imagine. But there you go. So
yeah.
Okay, so this one is a bit more straightforward. Make a list of the products in your house that might not be vegan or cruelty-free, which I know is a contested phrase in the first place. I need replacing. Please check your soaps, shampoos, etc.
Yeah, or else when you go to buy, when you go to buy a new product of any sort, then do your best to make sure. I mean, vegans do with the ingredients, that there's not animal products in the ingredients, and cruelty-free is more to do with the products not being tested on animals, or meeting certain criteria regarding animal testing.
Yeah, to be really sure, you need both symbols.
You kind of need it to say both, because some stuff that's labelled as not tested on animals can still contain animal products, and some stuff that doesn't contain animal products is still tested on animals. So it does have to be, it does really have to be both.
Yeah, I think I mentioned last time I was a little bit perplexed because I went down to my local supermarket, which I'm new here, so it was my new local supermarket, and there was a non-tested thing, but then it was endorsed by Peter, but it had honey in it. So
yeah,
I wasn't.
And then there's also, you see, then there's also the companies that produce these things, because we've got a company here called Ecover, and they they have these kind of environmentally friendly, not tested on animals. A lot of their stuff doesn't contain animal products, but they're owned by Unilever, who are an appalling company for doing experiments on animals that kind of, anyone in the know in the animal rights movement in the UK would boycott Unilever.
One of the best, didn't it?
Yeah, but once again, I think Ecover was one of those that many years ago was bought out. They're bought out by Unilever. We talked about this before, didn't they? About all these kind of, vegan stroke ethical companies being bought out by the big corporations, and they were another one. So that's the third thing you have to check. Well, who is the, what company is it that produces these things? And once again, it's a question of just us doing our best, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it is. Just to clarify this one, vegan Potterhead, because I'm always accused of bashing Peter at every opportunity. No, it just happened to be Peter approved shampoo. It was, but it said not tested, but it had honey extract. It was. So I can't remember the firm or the thing. I just got rid of it straight away.
But this is kind of more about, this is about sort of, personal choice, personal lifestyle, kind of rather than campaigning. But of course, what you can do is point other people in the direction of these things, can't you? Get hold of some literature that tells people about, how they can, buy more ethical products and kind of distribute that kind of stuff as well, so that you're educating others.
A form of activism would be to write or email to the companies that have only got one of those symbols, asking them if to clarify what it means. Because again, it
would do. It would be.
Yeah, get the impression this is made for relatively new vegans, Ronnie. So obviously you could then think about all your leather and your wool and your silk and all the rest of it, and all the different arguments about how to dispose of all that. Yeah, so
because there's big debate about, well, if you've still got leather shoes, should you still wear them, or just immediately replace them with non-leather ones, that kind of stuff. Isn't there? Is wearing them still promoting leather to other people?
It's like, are you promoting it? That's the problem, isn't it?
So, yeah, are you promoting it? I mean, perhaps the best alternative is to give the shoes to a charity shop, so that somebody will buy them instead of buying leather buying new leather shoes, and so therefore they're not, putting money into the leather industry. Perhaps
but then you got the argument: what if somebody goes, "Oh, they look good, but they're the wrong size"? They go, "Oh, I'll trot off and go and buy some." So,
yeah, it kind of is a bit of a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah,
and yeah.
Right. The next one is this, which I didn't know much about, so I had a quick look, and in fact, let me see if I can bring it up on the screen. I have to get rid of this one first. So these things are quite an interesting idea, which I didn't know anything about, to be honest, until I saw this. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll review vegan businesses on Google, And
All right. So,
but
have
I'm
you actually?
I'm not a local guide.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of sign up for this, and then wherever you go, you can review things, you can take photographs of them, and it's all supposed to be. Well, I guess it helps Google Maps. Essentially, that's the main thing, but it presumably is seen as a good thing to do in vegan terms as well.
Yeah.
So,
Well, on Google Maps, you know, when you kind of you know, click on a particular location, say it's like a vegan cafe, then you'll get all the reviews come up underneath.
yeah,
And
this is what you get when it says something like "get started," and then you've got all these things about. So you got overview, community policy, and all this kind of stuff. So it tells you how it kind of works, and it seems fairly complicated, but also quite useful, possibly. But
yeah,
I mean, don't take my word for it, because I haven't really got much of a clue about this, to be honest. So, so you're not actually signed up for this, Ronnie?
I'm not signed up for that. I mean, I do leave reviews. I do try and leave, you know, glowing reviews of vegan places. But that's just not as a local guide, but just as an ordinary person leaving reviews. And some of my reviews, you get messages, you get emails from Google saying, you know, 1,000 people have looked at your review and stuff like that. So some of them, a lot of people have looked at them.
So what are you reviewing?
Usually vegan cafes, you know, just saying how delicious the food was and how good the service was. It's
Okay,
it'd be mostly cafes.
Yeah, talk us through it then. What you go into Google and do that?
Well, I tend to do it through Google Maps, because that's linked to Google, and there's and if you're at a particular place.
Well, that's what this is, though.
Yeah, but this is kind of one step up, because it's kind of giving you a type of certification so that your reviews gain more prominence, I think, if you're a member of this. But you don't need to be a member of this local guides thing to leave a review.
Well, now that I've done a bit of research on it, I might look further into that, because it might be a really easy form of activism for somebody. And again, going back to what I said first, you know, like you don't have to be that active to be an activist. And so this would be a prime example of that, wouldn't it?
Well, it's thinking about all the sorts of things, you know, as we go about in our everyday lives. It's thinking about all the little things we can do to, you know, to promote veganism and animal liberation. And this is something that's kind of quite easy, that if you, you know, if you're sitting in a vegan cafe. I did it the other weekend when I was in a vegan cafe. I was sitting there, and I just left a review. It only took, you know, less than a minute to do it, you know. And it's just thinking of it. It's just thinking. It's like, you know, thinking to, you know, another thing I do is leave leaflets. I had to go to, I had to go to Birmingham yesterday to do an interview with someone that's does a vegan podcast. And on the way on the train, on the way and on the way back, I left vegan leaflets on the seats, and in the waiting room, I left vegan leaflets. And anyone can do that, and just, you know, get a few leaflets taken with you and leave them around.
You're just a litterer, really. You just like littering.
Well, yeah, I suppose technically, I don't know whether that is littering if you leave it on a seat. I don't know what the law is about that, but I risk it anyway.
Risk it for a vegan biscuit. That's
I risk
it. Yeah,
yeah.
So, well, nobody's mentioned them. Nobody's mentioned these local guides in the chat. But if anybody's watching the recording and you have experience of this, then do let us know in the comments, because that would be a good help for people, possibly. It should be quite good. Right, shall we move on?
Yep.
Splendid. I had a bit of a problem with this one. Gather 3 scientific sources that you can find most convincing in support of a vegan diet. Have them saved somewhere. You can quickly and easily share them if needed. So it's not a bad idea to have something shared. You've got to keep updating things, and also the vegan diet bit stuck with me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm much more into the ethical aspects of a vegan diet, to be honest, rather than anything else. But you've got several aspects, haven't you? You've got how many animals are spared if someone switches to a vegan diet. You've got that. You've got the environmental advantages of the vegan diet, and you've also got health advantages of a vegan diet. Well, certainly, if we kind of try to not eat too much vegan junk food, and then you've also got what might be called the food economy aspect. The fact that so many more people can be fed.
Do you know what though? Ronnie, sometimes I think that vegan activists get a little bit bogged down in all these precise.
Well, I think you see what I do is if I'm kind of in an online conversation with someone, or I want to post something about advantages of the vegan diet in any of those forms that I just mentioned, I just do an internet search for it, and you get links. That's the way to do it. You don't necessarily have to kind of make a note of it anyway. Just do a search, and then just copy the link.
Well, that way would mean that you're getting the more up to date stuff. But of course, some things. I mean, you can always just bookmark it if it's particularly good. And the best place to go to if you are going to do this type of thing is go to Google Scholar or to another brand of something Scholar. I don't know whether anybody else besides Google does that. But what you get then, if you go to Google Scholar, you get all the journals. Now, quite often, all you can see is the abstract, but there's also quite a lot where universities are publishing the PDF of them, and so you can get the full thing. So that's a good way of looking for it. But
I tend to use Ecosia as a search engine rather than. We spoke about this, that you when you use that as a search engine, they plant trees. They planted thousands of trees.
Is there an Ecosia Scholar? That's what I want to know.
I don't. There's probably not, but you see, the thing is, what tends to happen is that the more significant of these articles get published in newspapers. For instance, a lot of this stuff, there'll be an article relating to this type of research, maybe in some of the perhaps in one of the more serious newspapers. I mean, here in the UK, perhaps the Guardian or the Independent will tend to have articles where they refer to this research. So what you can do is actually post a link to the newspaper article, because that's a lot easier for someone to read through rather than to actually read the research itself. I tend to, that's more what I tend to do.
Yeah, well, you're only getting a version of it then, though. That's
you're getting a version, but often there's a link in the online newspaper article. There will then be a link to the research.
That's right, yeah.
So someone can go deeper if they want to.
Often there'll be a paywall problem unless you're part of a university.
Yeah.
Actually, Colleen beat me to this, because this is what I was going to say. Was the fact that the non-vegan people do love to kind of get you kind of involved in all the nitty-gritty of things, and really the ethical arguments cut through all of it.
Well, yes, I think that's right, and I think it's always best to kind of stick to the ethics as much as possible, because the ethics are irrefutable, aren't they? Really. And very simple and straightforward.
Well, there was supposed to be a debate. I think Michael was in it a couple of days ago or a couple of nights ago. It was through our night. I think it started at 2 a.m. for us, and it was supposed to be debating on who causes more death, vegans or flesh consumers and everything. And again, you've got to be careful here that you don't get sidetracked away from the ethics of stuff.
Yes, I think so. Although I would say that's quite there's quite an easy answer to that, isn't it? And the answer certainly isn't vegans. On that one, because they're once again they're going to be talking about crop deaths, aren't they? These characters.
That's interesting. Did you ever think of that one? Ecosia, I wasn't sure whether we're using vegan materials to plant the trees.
Well, the thing is, yes, I mean that is a point, but nevertheless, if you think about like being vegan is about doing our best, and despite this kind of query about what are they using to plant the trees, they would nevertheless still be much more ethical than companies like Google.
Yeah, well, you can just write to them, ask, I suppose.
You could write and ask, but you see, tree planting. I mean, when I've been involved in tree planting, no materials are really used. The trees are just planted in the earth. You dig a hole and plant the tree. That's kind of, to me, that's that's how I was thought it. What they were doing was.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Mazagob said, if you're doing industrial planting more than 50, etc., they won't use. Is that compost? Do you think?
They won't use a compass.
Yeah. I think it might be a reference to compost.
I mean, I normally use a spade, but what I do, and this is like an ultra vegan way of planting trees. If I'm planting a tree, I'll take I try and take a fork and a spade. And the reason is if you start digging the hole with a spade, you're liable to cut worms in half. Whereas if you start with a fork and kind of loosen the earth with a fork, you're much less likely to kind of injure the worms before you start taking the soil out of the hole.
I thought you were going to say you bury a hunter and then put the tree on top.
Well, I think that the tree would be poisoned if you buried a hunter, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't be so good. Right, let's move on then. This is now. I think this is really again probably thinking in terms of like a shared house. Otherwise, it's just a family thing. But I guess well, I don't know. I mean, if you're having difficulty talking to your family, then this is not going to help really. It's just going to antagonize them more than anything, I would think. But if you're in a shared house, then yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they stay there, though, isn't it? But
we do it on. I mean, we're a vegan family. We do it on our fridge because we live in social housing, and people come from the housing association sometimes to kind of, check the boiler and check different things. And so, we have probably they're. I mean, we have got one or two friends that aren't vegan, very few, but it's funny sometimes because we had one guy who came, and he come to do I think he came to service the boiler and check the smoke alarms and stuff. And he ended up leaving with a vegan booklet and a box of joss sticks. Because we got him really interested in it. But others come in and like they're really freaked out, and they you can see them running out to their van to very quickly open a copy of The Sun that they've got in there. Because they're completely that our kind of culture of our house is like completely alien to them, and it's quite amusing to see them flee from our house as quickly as possible to go back to
they're looking for light relief,
to normal land.
Yeah. Vegan I live on my own, so do I, but I don't have support. Yeah. Well,
I think that's a good idea, because you never know. Like I said, that one chap came and he ended up, we ended up making him interested in it. So it can work sometimes.
Yeah, we got a slide later about car stickers. So do you also have window stickers facing outwards then, Ronnie?
Yeah, I mean, we have got some on our front window, yes. So anyone that kind of comes to put something in. Now I've got another cat disrupting now. I don't know if you can see her. She's just at the side.
I've been monitoring the situation.
Yeah, this is Lola. This one.
Right.
Look, she wants. There we go. Come on.
As in the Kink song.
Yeah, little Lola. Yeah.
Mm.
Come here. It's not
the-
that little, really. Yeah.
The next picture, I don't think you've seen this next picture, Ronnie. This is actually from a real vegan fridge.
Is the fuck off aimed at non-vegans that are going to go in there and steal the vegan food?
Yeah, something like that. This was a squat. This one actually. So
Yeah, because they do tend to do that. I mean, I remember going to like a friend of ours some years ago sadly died, and we went to a funeral. And then afterwards, there was like a kind of reception, and like her family, like, you know, she didn't come from a vegan family, but they did say, oh, you know, we have put on some vegan food because they knew she had a lot of vegan friends. And we kind of lost our way to reception. And when we got there, all the vegan food had been eaten by the non-vegans. And we had to just eat a few crisps and a lettuce leaf or something was left.
Yeah. Funny thing is, right, is that you get that story over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known it several times with vegan academics, and yet you go on TikTok or anywhere else, and everybody's absolutely adamant that vegan food is absolutely horrible, and that, you know, you're going to spit it out and all this kind of stuff. And you just think none of this is true. They're just saying anything that they can.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Of course they are, because when, you know, I've had it happen. I've had that several times. Exactly the same thing, where they tear into the vegan food.
Well, I told you, didn't I, that at my university they used to label things vegan, and then they ended up labeling it Roger to try and stop people eating it. Right,
They didn't think it was actually. They didn't think it actually was Roger, did they?
Yeah, I'm not going there. Right, number 26. Visit an animal sanctuary with a non-vegan friend. This is interesting. In fact, that Beware of the Chickens is on the door of the Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary, one of the vegan-run sanctuaries in Ireland. I always loved it, so I took a picture.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Yeah. Yeah. You might get pecked to death.
Yeah, I mean, the ironic thing about that, and in relation to the tip, is the fact that Eden doesn't actually allow people to visit. So that's interesting.
Is that because the chickens are too dangerous?
It is, yeah.
But I mean, I've kind of actually done this, where we've gone to visit an animal sanctuary, and, you know, we've asked non-vegan friends, because we have one or two non-vegan friends who are kind of interested in animal protection, like are into kind of wildlife protection and stuff like that. And we've kind of taken them along to animal sanctuaries. So yeah, I mean, particularly if it's a sanctuary for farmed animals, and the sanctuary has some information about the plight of other animals of the same species that aren't as lucky as the ones that are in the sanctuary. And I think, you know, quite a few sanctuaries like that do have that kind of information available.
Yeah, I think the vegan run ones certainly
Yeah.
do. Yeah. So what effect do you think it had on your mates or whoever you took?
Well, it's hard to say, because a lot of stuff is, I think that I wouldn't say that they're kind of gone, you know, they've gone totally vegan in terms of their diet, but certainly kind of going that way. I mean, it's difficult to talk about, you know, going towards veganism, because of course it's a philosophy, isn't it? And it's something that you know, that's either something you kind of accept or you kind of don't accept, isn't it? Would you say it's as clear cut as that?
Well, I'm interested in the social psychology of this, in the sense that there's this idea that if you meet other animals, someone, and especially other species whom you normally kind of consume, this is supposed to have some kind of impact, at the very least, kind of plant a few seeds and everything.
Yes.
Whether it actually does or not is an interesting one.
Yeah, I tend to think it may have planted seeds, because quite often people become vegan after several different experiences, don't they? You know,
yeah,
the first
but
time
also you've got
Yeah.
you've got that overarching idea that, of course, people tend to encounter farmed animals only on their plate or in the supermarket, right? And so they don't really know what they look like when they're still alive, and so it can be, I suppose, educational with a shock value. Maybe I don't know. It's interesting. So
yeah, I mean, it certainly can't do any harm to do something like this. You know, if you're going to an animal sanctuary and you've got any non-vegan friends that might be interested in going along with you, then yeah, invite them along. You know, you don't know what the impact might be.
yeah, that's an interesting one. If other parents often mention visiting farms, you know, the kind of ones that are open. So I share sanctuary photos and alternatives. That's a good idea. Yeah, and especially if the sanctuary has the same kind of facilities as these kind of open to the public farms, which there was a couple in Wales when I was doing my PhD, and of course, you always struck as a vegan the fact that they have the same species in the cafe as well as outside.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem. And also often the species of animals the animals they have on the farm itself get sent off for slaughter once they reach a particular age as well.
Yeah. Well, once again, if you're watching the recording of this and you've done this, let us know what the outcome was, because again, somebody might read your report and go, right, I'll do it myself then.
I mean, I certainly know that you know, I've spoken a lot with Wenda, who runs the Huglitz Wood farm animal sanctuary down in Sussex, and she's, you know, she's kind of related quite a number of instances where non-vegans have visited Huglitz Wood and ended up going vegan because of their, you know, they've had interaction with the animals there. So they've mainly got cows and calves there, and that's happened on quite a number of occasions where people have, you know, have gone vegan or become vegan as a result of visiting there.
Would actually be quite interesting to do a sociological study of those kind of you know, so-called petting farms, or the farms that are open to the public, and you know, talking to people on the way out, kind of, you know, what was your experience with the live animals, and did you then go to the cafe and did it make any connections? You know, it'd be interesting to see all that, wouldn't it? So
I suppose another thing you could do, I suppose, I mean, whether any aggro would arise from it, is if one of these places had a big open day, you know, like a petting farm type place, you could stand outside with vegan leaflets and give them to people as they came out, and that might, you know, that possibly that might be a good idea. I mean, if you weren't on
the staff and the owners would love it too.
Well, if you're not on their property, there ain't a lot they can do. So that's true. Yeah, that's an idea. I mean, it would work. It would especially work if it was an occasion they were having where kind of lots of people were visiting.
I've thought of I don't know, I might mention this last time. I'm wondering about, because I wouldn't go to the generational difference again, obviously in vegans, but I wouldn't kind of go to McDonald's if you paid me. But be interesting to know whether, if you were giving people leaflets about the Mac plant on the way in, whether that would have some kind of effect. and you'd still be there when they come out, so they could almost like give you a report about what it was like, or just to see if any dots were connected or any seeds were planted, you know, that kind of thing. But
yeah, I mean, if people are going to, you know, going into McDonald's, I'd obviously prefer that they ate the Mac plant than that they ate one of the burgers containing animal products, obviously. So that is, you know, I can see what would be positive about doing that.
yeah, go back to the usual thing with the vegans and go in there with quick drying cement for the toilets.
Oh yeah, I've kind of heard that one. I mean, I've gone to the toilet in there, but I haven't taken quick drying cement. In fact, that's the only reason I've ever gone into McDonald's is to use the toilet or for a Mac piss, as it's called.
Is that what it's called?
I've never taken cement.
No. Okay. Right. We shall swiftly move on, I think. Now, this is we've had about 3 like this already, or this is the 3rd one, and these are one of the ones that, to me, doesn't really say anything to me. But what do you think, Ronnie? Write a post talking about an act of kindness towards an animal you witnessed recently. So, write a post. A blog entry, or
maybe on social media. I mean, is that going to encourage other people to also act kindly? Possibly so, but of course, how does it affect the bigger picture of educating people to become vegan? That's what I'd be mostly interested in.
Yeah, but Ronnie, you of all of us probably have got more experience, certainly in recent times, of writing to the local and regional press, right? So would this make a good way of getting in to the letters page?
Well, I think if kind of how I'd look at that is if you write a letter to a local newspaper and it's based on an article that's already appeared in the newspaper,
that's the best thing, obviously. Yeah,
there's a better chance of it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, kind of from a cold situation of there's no hook. You're trying to create one yourself.
So sometimes they'll print stuff where, you know, there isn't a hook. It kind of depends, I suppose, on how much space they've got for letters. But it's kind of how could you use this to promote veganism? That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, I mean, I'm thinking that, you know, sometimes there'll be an article in our newspaper about an act of kindness that someone's done towards a farmed animal. I think there was one some while ago about a sheep was caught in a fence and someone rescued the sheep. And I wrote a letter in saying, oh, you know, well done to the person that rescued the sheep. But sadly, you know, the kind of the sheep's not likely to last much longer anyway, because, you know, of them being sent to slaughter at such a young age. And it was that was the kind of theme of the letter, but it was based on an article.
Did it get published?
Yes. Yeah, but because often they'll, you know, you'll get articles about that. You know, a sheep was rescued, or a cow. There was another one where a cow got bogged down in mud, and they came with a winch and, you know, winched the cow, you know, rescued the cow.
Yeah,
and I think
it's ironic, isn't it?
I wrote one about that, and that got published as well. About, you know, sadly the cow, despite this, you know, kind act, you know, the cow, you know, still hasn't got a happy life to look forward to, because, you know, they're slaughtered at about 6 years old, aren't they, I think?
Yeah, I know a lot of people would think of cognitive dissonance here to explain what's going on there, but I tend to think it's just cultural species getting it both ways. They because they like those kind of rescue pictures.
People love that, because you see, they kind of relate to that individual animal, but as you say, they're able to kind of distance themselves you know, from the animal that's
Well,
on their
I think
plates.
it's a little bit like a production line though, because it's the same as a lot of specialists. They love to see. I mean, like in Wales when I was there, but it must go on everywhere else as well. Every spring you get that same kind of stereotypical picture of the lambs and the little farm kids, especially if it's a young kind of 6-year-old girl holding the lamb and all this kind and they love all that, but it doesn't necessarily make them change their attitude towards adult lambs. And even if they think, well, when that one grows up, I'll be eating that one, but because there's going to be others that they can coo over as replacements of that. And so I think that sometimes we think, well, surely you must make the connection. I just think they go, well, this is like double exploitation, really. Kind of, well, I enjoy them when they're young and I enjoy them when they're old,
Yeah, I think, certainly I think that, that kind of can be something that happens. But I think also it's just people not thinking about it and kind of putting it out of their mind. It's kind of not going there with it.
Yeah.
And so it's important to remind. I mean, the average age at which lambs are slaughtered in the UK is 6 months old. So just a few months after that picture was taken, that lamb's going to be killed.
Yeah, the same with pigs and piglets.
Yeah, same with all of them. As soon as they're not going to keep them alive a minute longer than when they reach the required weight for slaughter, are they?
Animal farming is an interesting occupation, isn't it? You keep other animals alive to the time when they're killed, and that's your job, is to make sure that they get to the kill.
Yes.
So it's a bit peculiar in a way, isn't it?
And they're also sad if an animal.
Make sure this one gets to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah, if an animal it becomes ill or dies before that time, they're all sad, aren't they? With their crocodile.
Yeah, it's a big
tears.
tragedy then. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, is crocodile tears a speciesist expression?
Actually, I don't know the etymology of that. Anybody know where the phrase crocodile tears comes from? That's interesting, isn't it? So,
is it what happens when a crocodile bites you, or is it tears of a crocodile?
I don't know. It's not related to Peter Pan or anything like that, is it?
No, it is quite odd. No, I don't know where that comes from.
No. Oh well, we ponder that mystery. Right, so this is it. If you have a car, get a vegan bumper sticker. Woo!
Yeah.
Now,
woo. We mentioned this in a previous episode, didn't we? And we were talking about putting stickers, not just bumper stickers. You can have window stickers as well. I mean, on my car, I think you got some pictures there, Roger. My car, I've got both. That's the bumper. Those are the bumper stickers. I've got Sea Shepherd. I've got something about not running over snakes. I've got a vegan one. I've got about breaking for wildlife. I think you can't totally see them, but they're all to do.
Left and right. They're both Sea Shepherd, aren't they?
They're both Sea Shepherd, and then there's one with a cow. I think and there's a vegan flag. That's my. Well, it's not the bumper. It's like it's at the bottom of the tailgate, so to speak.
Yeah. So what's the snake one saying? Don't run over.
The snake is about not to kill snakes or something. I think I can't even remember exactly what it says, but it's about protecting snakes. Because people.
I guess you're normally at the front of the vehicle and looking the other way, so you've got an excuse.
Yeah.
I do remember the I break for wildlife.
Yes.
Thing. That's very old. That I can see them now. No excuse for animal abuse. Prevent pandemics. You got.
Yeah. Oh yes, that's it. Yeah.
You've got be kind to snakes. That's
it. Because you can probably see it more closer up than me. And
I can see it when I'm looking at the screen.
That's the back window.
Yeah.
And I've got like vegan. I've got a sticker there. Forest Green Rovers, the vegan.
Just put it on full screen for people to look at. I think.
Football club. The one in the middle is about the national support in the National Health Service.
Yeah.
And then I've got one about, I think that's hedgehogs in the middle, the Vegan Society one. There's the one about the purple poppy, the purple poppy in memory of animals killed in war. And there's
like a red and purple, yeah.
Red and purple, yeah. The red is for the humans and the purple's for the animals. There's also a white one for peace, isn't there? White poppy.
Oh yeah, we always used to have the white ones.
Yeah, and then I think that round one on the right hand side is an animal sanctuary. The one under the kind of the red one at the bottom, that's an anti-vivisection one. And then what I do in those spaces, more towards the top, if there's a poster for like a local vegan event or a local event where we've got a vegan stall.
Oh yeah, you do a bit.
I'll stick posters in those spaces. So sometimes the whole window is covered in posters.
That's kind of old school, but you used to see that, didn't you? A lot of people
used to see that a lot. I mean, now and again, there's someone local's got a big thing saying Animal Liberation Front on the back of their car. I've now got a Camp Beagle. I've got a big Camp Beagle sticker on the back of it now as well, because this was taken, I think this picture was taken probably a couple of years ago or so. But if I get another sticker and I've got more room for it, I'll put it on there. But yeah, and I mean, this is something that people could, I mean, it's lucky having a flat, having a flat back to my vehicle, because it makes it easier for people to see the stuff.
So you went into the showroom and said, I want a sticker-friendly vehicle.
Sticker-friendly. Well, it's a very convenient vehicle because, of course, my wife Louise is a wheelchair user, and it's a good one for getting the wheelchair in the back. And it can be, you can fold the seats, concertina seats, and use it as a van.
I'm surprised the number plate doesn't say General or something, though, Ronnie.
Yeah. I should have paid a load of money and got one that said.
Yeah, it costs a fortune to do that, doesn't it?
It costs quite a lot. Yeah.
So we mentioned this before we came on air. There are some concerns about whether this might invite an attack. So
in certain areas, I think it probably would. I mean, I kind of. Nothing's ever. I've had the car like that for years, and I think on my previous car I had stickers as well. And
you wouldn't go stabbing in it. You wouldn't go stabbing in it.
Oh no, I kind of wouldn't go. I think I'd go stabbing in a vehicle like that. You kind of. We used to sometimes put pro hunt stickers in the car when we went stabbing, so it would be safe.
Rachel Lever says you were ripped off. Salesman saw Ronnie coming.
So yeah, that's it. Yeah, he probably did. Yeah. But yeah, I think in certain areas it would be risky to have that on your vehicle. I mean, I kind of think I sort of weigh up. Well, maybe one day it will get damaged, but like, how much would I have to pay for that amount of advertising? It would have been hundreds and hundreds of pounds, you see. And so I kind of weigh that kind of in the balance.
All right. So you've worked out, if somebody comes along and wants a little bit of your window, you've worked out how much it costs, have you?
Well, I haven't worked it out exactly, but I think over the years, if I had to pay for that amount of advertising, it would have been quite a few £100 probably, or perhaps more. And so you take a chance, but I think people have to kind of weigh it up for themselves, depending on, the area where they live. And, perhaps there's some places where you would go. And I
know there's bumper stickers are big in the USA.
Yes.
And I think that maybe that you might not be able to put them on your window, because obviously you're restricting your rear view.
I mean, I've got wing mirrors. I use the wing mirrors.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you can have wind. Perhaps someone who's in the chat from the USA can say, do I get any grief from old Bill? I don't actually know. No, I haven't had grief from the old Bill for years, actually.
No, it was a while ago, Ronnie.
It was, and certainly I haven't had any grief from them for the stickers on the car.
No, I mean, considering what you ever got up to, stickers on the car seems to be a bit small.
Yeah, it's quite mild, really, in
yeah.
terms of what I've done, putting a sticker on a car. Yeah, but so that is something people can consider if they feel it would be safe, for them to do that.
Now, this one's a good one, of course, and this is an interesting debate within the vegan community, isn't it? Always give priority to fully vegan services. For example, if there's a fully vegan grocery store, give it priority over other grocery stores. And of course, you can extend that to restaurants and cafes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of back to Macbeth and all that.
We are, because I think the other thing to consider is this: that you see, that we're doing our best not to not to buy animal products, aren't we? And
I buy them all the time, Ronnie.
Yeah. Yeah, somehow I don't quite believe that, Roger, but here we are.
No.
But yeah, bio. I think by bio it probably means organic, because often bio is used for for organic. Perhaps that's what that means. You see, the thing is, if you, it's kind of, yeah, we try our best not to put our money, not to buy animal products, right? Well, you could go in a vegan cafe, and obviously you're not buying animal products, right? If you go in a non-vegan cafe and buy a vegan option, you're not buying animal products. But then the question comes: the people you've given your money to, what are they going to spend the money on? If you've given your money to vegans that run a vegan cafe, they're not going to buy animal products with that money. But if you give your money to someone who runs a non-vegan cafe, and you've just bought a vegan option non-vegan cafe, that person is then going to spend some of that money on animal products. So you're still buying animal products, but but in a secondary way.
Yeah, the other way of thinking, I suppose, of the longer term, but with that kind of short-term problem that you've just raised, is the fact that if you go to an entirely vegan thing, there's no kind of campaigning about going. Whereas if you go to a non-vegan place, you're creating the demand, which might create change. There's nothing to change in that sense with the vegan company.
Yeah, I can't see what you mean, but it's a question of the reason why these places I think have vegan options. I think a lot of it is actually to do with attracting non-vegans, and I think the reason for this is that if people are going as a group, and in that group of people there's someone who's a vegan, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. About 3 years ago, it kind of was in the kind of trade things that, which is why what vegans started noticing is that places that used to have one vegan option started to have 2 and 3 and 4 vegan options, and the reason for that was that they were trying to attract the vegans who would go out for a meal with their non-vegan friends, and obviously there's a bit of politics there, right? But they were basically saying, well, look, if you don't have any vegan options, then it means that if there's 1 vegan and 3 others, you lose 4 customers.
Yeah, and they'll just go to another place that's got vegan options, won't they?
Yeah, but then if you've got 2 places with vegan options, you think, well, okay, well, let's have. So they're competing then to get the vegan,
and that's kind of who that's really kind of who they're aiming for.
Yeah, so, it's like a Judas goat.
Yeah. So I think, you see, I think they're kind of going to do that anyway. And it doesn't make a difference to that vegans support vegan businesses, because if we don't support these vegan cafes and vegan businesses, they're going to go under. And so it's really important that, and once again, it's a question of, this idea of us kind of doing our best. Sometimes it's not possible to go to the vegan cafe. One thing I find with a lot of vegan cafes, for instance, is they're not certainly the ones in our area, they're not open in the evening. You want to go somewhere in the evening, then, you have to go to a non-vegan place that has vegan options. So all the time you're just kind of doing your best. But certainly if I had a choice at the particular time that I want to go to a cafe or restaurant between a vegan and a non-vegan place, I would do my utmost to choose the vegan place.
What do you think about the idea? Because this is what happened really in Dublin in two instances where, when I first arrived in Dublin, there was a Govindas, which is kind of like the Indian kind of food, but then there's also cornucopia, and I think they claimed at the time they were about 65% vegan, and now they're kind of 98%, and really the only thing they have is cow milk, because I think their non-vegan people complain about it curdling, plant milk's curdling in coffee. But I think that problem is getting solved now. It used to be a problem all the time. So would you go to a vegetarian place with vegan options in order to move them more vegan?
Well, I think I'd go there if it was a choice of a vegetarian place that was mostly vegan like that, and going to a place that kind of only had a few vegan options and was mainly animal products, then I'd go to the place that sold mostly vegan food. You're trying to choose the most ethical or the least unethical all the time, really, or doing your best to do so. So that's what I do.
If there was an entirely vegan place, you'd go there, wouldn't you?
Yeah. If there was one available and it was open at the time, yes, in that area where I was, well, quite definitely. But you see, this is happening across the board where the vegetarian stuff's been replaced by vegan stuff, because you can see it with companies that have their food in their food products in supermarkets. I mean, for instance, corn is an example. At one time, none of it was vegan, and there was a campaign, and now a lot of it's vegan. The same with Linda McCartney products. So they're all, and I think the technology.
Corn, though, Ronnie, wasn't it that it's been through the labs or something? Corn?
There was something about corn being tested, but I'm not quite sure of the details. And know that there was that at one time. Yeah. So there's a bit of a question mark over that, perhaps. But that's happening. But I think it might be to do with the technology that they're able to kind of, make the stuff vegan and it tastes the same as the vegetarian stuff.
Yeah, there are a few closing in Ireland. That's for sure.
We've got the same here in England, but I think that's partly to do with we've got a lot of small businesses closing. A lot of kind of independent shops and stuff closing.
It's just the way of capitalism, Ronnie. Because
it's to do with the economic
once
situation.
Once they identify a market, they flood the market, and then they over kind of supply it, and then it all kind of comes down to an equilibrium. I mean, one example in Ireland would be things like Marks and Spencer's. They started having this kind of plant kitchen type range. And I don't know whether that's in Britain as well.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you go into fairly small Marks and Spencer's, and there would be quite a big display of them. And now they've shrunk down to... And so, obviously, what happened there, they were testing the market, and now they've shrunk everything down to what the actual market is. And the only time it goes back up again is for January, of course.
Well, I think they're also testing what are the most popular products. I remember we had a new Morrison's open. I was probably going back 5 or 10 years locally. And when we went in there was like loads of these vegan, well, obviously, the kind of processed products, but there was like loads of them. And then went back about a month later, and that had shrunk to a really small percentage. And what they were doing was probably testing out which were the most popular ones. and then they just kept to those.
Yeah,
I think
well,
it's increased. It has increased again since then, because I think there are more people that have become vegan, and they've been able to increase the range again.
I think supermarket economics are really complicated in the sense that after Veganuary, there was loads of stuff in the bargain bins, but there's also loads of non-vegan stuff as well. And then when we used to when we were on the street in Dublin, we would go from our kind of setting up to a Dunnes store, which is called a supermarket chain, and they would give us bags and bags and bags of the bread that they couldn't sell. We would come out with 2 trolley loads full of bread. This is for the sanctuary, right?
Yeah.
And the reason they had so much of it was the fact that they couldn't let it wind down towards the end of the day. That they have this policy that if somebody goes in, even in the last few minutes, all the shelves have got to be full, right? Otherwise, the psychology is that people will go elsewhere. So it's really kind of weird, psychology going on there.
Well, this is an example of how capitalism harms other animals, really, isn't it? Because there is so much waste. I mean, you know, in your case, you were able to take that bread for the sanctuary, but you know, probably on many occasions and in many other supermarkets, it would be thrown away.
Yeah, well, we used to do a run to the there's a homeless thing as well, so we used to do that.
Yeah.
Or I mean, you're not supposed to say homeless anymore. Apologies for
that. And so therefore, you've got an excess of production there, and you've also, and it's not just the bread; it's also the plastic packaging that it's in, and all that, and the transport costs of it, and all that. You've got all this excess, and that actually, all of that impacts on the natural world and harms animals that live in the natural world. So that, you know, that's immediate an example of how we need a system that's properly managed and isn't subject to the market.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny that you say what you just said there, Ronnie, because I used to make the claim that there is no such thing as food waste, because someone would consume it, even if it was thrown away, because it was kind of human arrogance to suggest that if humans don't eat it, that it's wasted. And of course, that's not what happens. So even if it's microbes and bacteria, that, you know, someone or something would kind of consume this matter. But it's the energy that goes into it, and the packaging, as you say, that's the thing that causes the problem.
Well, if they threw it away locally, it would go to the incinerator, so nothing would, and it would contribute to the climate crisis by being burnt. That's what happens in our area.
They burn food,
you know. So
they burn food in the incinerator.
If it's just thrown away with the normal waste, they would burn. Yeah, locally it would be burnt. Yeah, and in a lot of areas where they've got incinerators. Otherwise, the other thing, it would kind of alternative to that, it would go into landfill, where a lot of it, I mean, you get seagulls and animals like that will kind of, you know, pick over stuff in landfill, but then that kind of gets buried with big bulldozers and stuff.
But but that would still be, the landfill would still be consumed.
It would, but you see, it's covered in a lot of stuff
and everything. And,
it's wrapped in plastic, isn't it? So you've got that aspect of it as well. So, you know, this is a prime example of, like, because it can't be managed and controlled properly, because it's subject to, you know, just a system of making profits. There's just so much waste.
So Veggie Part, check out Ready Steady Skip on YouTube. It's interesting.
The skip is probably the skip where the food is thrown, I suppose.
Yeah, you mean like dumpster diving, right? We're 10 minutes over our hour, so let's go. Well, this one, interesting. This one, of course. I suppose this is a community building within the vegan community, maybe.
Well, it might encourage the person to make another documentary, and I suppose if people have, you know, somebody's made a documentary that's likely to, you know, cause more people to become vegan, then that person does deserve thanks. So, you know, this is you know, in its small way, that is positive.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, not everything is kind of groundbreaking and explosive stuff here, but again, it just goes to show there's a lot of stuff that people can do. You know, I mean, like this series is good in the sense that it might give people ideas if they've got it in their heads. It's got to be, you know, a limited number of things. You know, you really need to kind of liberate your imagination, really, when it comes to animal activism, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's a question of thinking all the time. Well, you know, as I go about, you know, my everyday life, you know, what small things can I do to promote veganism, and trying to do as many as, you know, we possibly can, because it all adds up.
Yeah, it's a drip, drip, drip effect. So you have an announcement for next week, is that right?
Well, I think next week, because something happened here in the in England on Saturday, which I think was, you know, really quite significant, and, you know, would be something that would be good for us to talk about on our next show, and it involved my wife Louise.
Yeah, who's this disruptive character?
This criminal, yes, my wife Louise in a wheelchair. She's just been she was handcuffed to that gate that you see at the back of the picture, handcuffed herself to that, and they kind of
a freshly painted
cut her free, and it was following.
Yeah.
She and 4 other women carried out a paint attack on an animal research laboratory called Sequani, which is in a town called Ledbury, which is kind of like sort of west of England. And they were all arrested. There we are. That's one of them in action there. They're all arrested, and I mean, she's been released under investigation for criminal damage.
Yeah, it'd be criminal damage, won't it?
And it's sort of the first time really for a very long time that anything like this has happened. And well, it's the first time anything kind of exactly of this nature, I think, has ever happened in the, you know, the overall campaign against vivisection. And there's lots of interesting aspects about it. So I think it would kind of merit a show of its own for us to kind of just to talk about, you know, the whole thing. And that's what we'll be doing. That's what we'll be doing next week. When I think we'll be back to our normal time, won't we, Roger?
Yeah, I suppose so. I've got to sort that out.
Unless you're supposed to be playing football again.
Well, I'm supposed to be making a glorious return to my football, but it's kind of not happening. And I suppose I ought to really decide whether I ought to retire or not. But it's just that I just fancied going back just to see if I could do it, really. It's just that it all fell through for today. But the problem is, if it resurrects itself for next week, we've got the problem of when, unless we change the day or something.
Yeah. So you're a bit like Ronaldo, really, kind of carrying on playing.
I don't think I'm anything like Ronaldo.
No, you're far.
Really?
You're far.
I am the lawyer of Cristiano Ronaldo.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Do you know what that is reference to? You won't know, will you?
He bites your legs, Yates. Well, there was a football player, wasn't there, that was called
There was
that.
Do you know what he's called?
Did he play for Leeds?
He did.
Oh, hang on a minute. It was the dirty player, wasn't it?
No, he was a nice lad. He was a nice lad.
Bites your leg. No, tell me.
Norman Hunter.
Oh, Norman Hunter. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yes.
Well, the funny thing is, I was saying on a forum today, because Leeds are playing in the FA Cup today, but they won it in 1972. But right at the end of the game, their centre forward Mick Jones, he dislocated his arm, and so Norman Hunter went and helped him up the stairs to get his medal and everything. So he was a good guy, really, even though he might snap your legs now and again.
So did he bite? Did he actually physically bite anyone's legs?
No, it was funny. It was just like a banner, right, that was in the crowd. And it kind of stuck with him forever after that. And so, you know, it was almost like, you know, do you live up to your nickname or what? I suppose.
Because there was one footballer, wasn't it? He did used to bite people. Who was that? Played for Liverpool. It's a South American one, wasn't he? I can't remember his name.
You're not thinking of Mike Tyson?
Suarez, wasn't it? Luis Suarez, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's right. He did
He used
take
to
a
bite-
chunk
he
out of
used to
somebody,
bite-
didn't he? Yeah.
He used to bite other players, didn't he? I think normally on the arm or the face or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think he was a vegan, and so he was obviously getting the
He was a vampire.
Yeah. Because that's the other weird thing, isn't it? Mike Tyson bit somebody's ear off, didn't he? But then
Supposedly, because he's supposed to be vegan, isn't he?
Well, he went plant-based after that. Yeah,
plant-based. Yeah. Was that following? Was it because the ear tasted so bad?
Food poisoning.
Anyway, we better say cheerio to all these
That's
nice
true.
people
Vegans don't bite legs, Ronnie.
Vegans don't bite legs. Well, no, I suppose they don't really know. But table legs, maybe.
Oh well, speak for yourself. Right. So
We won't go into that.
Thank you, everyone, for hanging in with us. We'll return with that one about the more criminal activism next week, and then we'll be back for the fourth lot of this kind of anybody can do a little bit of it if they put their mind to it type activism. So we shall be back, Ronnie, providing, of course, that we are
Still alive.